Hello everybody, my name is Jenny. I'll be taking you through the basics and some of the not so basics of crochet. So hopefully you can, through this demonstration, get a better idea visually, if you're a visual learner, of what goes on to make a chart. So I'm going to assume that you can already install and open crochet. But if you do need help with that, you should probably consult the website, crochet's website. I think there's help on there about it, and if that's not enough help, then you can just email Adam. I guess he'd probably be the best person versus me to help you to get it installed. So I have the window maximized, and I like to do that. It just kind of helps you just get a clearer sense of what's going on the whole page, but you don't have to maximize it, but it's easier to see what's going on if you do. So once you open it, you have your symbols menu over here on the right, and these menus retract and open. So as you can see, there are quite a few symbols to choose from. And then below that is tools, and this is what you use to manipulate the symbols. And curves I won't go into for this tutorial, mainly because I'm not so good at them yet, but also because they're a little more complex. You can do more just with the curves themselves, so that merits its own tutorial, I think. So once I get better at that, I can do another video for that, but I would be useless, I think, at helping you. I mean, maybe not. I know a little bit about them, but not very much. So for today, we'll skip that, but there's plenty to learn with just the symbols. So we have our chain selected, and we come over here, and oh my god, I can't place any symbols. What's going on? File, new. You need to have a project open to be able to place symbols on the screen. So open a new project, and from here you can change the size of the canvas onto which you will place the symbols. So you can change the height and width by pixels, you can change the height and width by inches, and as you can see, the default is 8 by 10 inches, which is roughly the size of a piece of paper, so I think that will be plenty of space to just get started. It's a good starting point. And then you can always adjust it later, you can come back. So you can just click OK for now. But before I do that, I do want to show you dots per inch, DPI, and I don't know it really completely, like front and back, but from what I do understand, it represents a density of pixels in a given area, and in this case 1 inch. So this setting, I mess with it sort of as like a last resort, and that's because it just has a lot of leverage over like how it changes the size of the canvas. So I would use it. I used it the other day actually for the first time. I've made like 4 charts. I've played around a lot more than 4 times, but I've only like completed 4 charts, and I used it the other day for the first time because I was working on a cowl that was really wide. It was triangular and really wide. So I just was placing, my symbols and placing my symbols, and I ran out of space on the canvas. I didn't have anywhere else to put symbols. So I came here and made my project wider, like to 1000, I think. And if you just press tab, it'll update any fields that have changed, like it'll update the changes with the changes. And that made it like 10.5 inches wide, which is way too wide to fit on a piece of paper, because what we're doing is making an image, and so the image is 10.416 repeating inches wide, and since I distribute my patterns through a PDF, the image, a 10.5-inch picture won't fit onto that piece of paper in my word processor that I make the PDF from. So then I went over here to the dots per inch and changed it to like 120, I think. Yeah. And that takes it back down to 8.3 by 8. And as you can see, DPI changes both the height and width. So that size of a picture would definitely fit onto a piece of paper. Granted, it takes up most of the piece of paper, but if that's how much you need to take up, that's how much you need to take up. That's fine. So let me just show you what I mean about leverage with this setting. That was at 96, and this was at 7. Was it 86 or 6? It was 768. My bad. Okay, so let's say we're going to make it narrower by 4 pixels. That's only 7.95 or so inches. And then let's put that back to where it was, and let's change this by 4. Now it's inversely related, because like if you need more stuff, if you want to fit more stuff into the same amount of space, you just have to cram it so it gets denser. So that's what DPI is, changing the density of stuff on the page. See, I told you I didn't know it front and back, because I don't think they say stuff in the tech world. But anyway, I changed this by 4, just like I changed this by 4, but it's inversely related, so I had to put it up to make this smaller. And check that out, it's 7.68 inches wide versus the 7.95 that this change made it. So as you can see, it's got a lot more leverage. I don't know if that's the right word, but it seems appropriate. So anyway, 8 by 10 is good for now, so I'll click OK now. Just wanted to show you that. So now you can see we have our white canvas here. You can scroll down and scroll up, and now you can place your symbols. Whee! But that's not really, that's not a chart. So the first Chet tip now is hold down Ctrl and hit Z, and that will undo the action that you just did. So have quite a bit of undoing to do. Just keep hitting Z. Or if you're like, well, that chart was really good, I want that one. So Control Y, hold down Control and hit Y, 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 and that'll redo. So Control Z to redo, Control Y, no, that was backwards. Control Z to undo, Control Y to redo. Okay, so let's make our foundation chain. I'm just going to put 6 chains. So there you go. Now obviously I didn't place them as perfectly as I could have, and that was on purpose, so I can show you the functions of the program. But before I do that, I just want to say how it's not really important to be perfect every step of the way, because some of the small imperfections will just get lost, you know, in the bigger picture, so you don't really need to worry about it until you see the whole thing. But for now, I am going to straighten this one out. But you really don't need to worry about getting too tedious. It just takes I think it takes a lot less time to just like work up a really, you know, sort of a faster, don't think, just do sort of draft of the pattern, the chart, I mean, and then go back and move big chunks around, and you'll see what I mean by that later. So just don't worry about being perfect too much, or only worry about it as much as you want to, I guess. So go to the tools. We need to move those around and stuff. I guess we don't need to, but I'm gonna. And these are all buttons that you can push. These are your tools. This is the select tool. We'll be using that one first, and if you hover your mouse cursor over the button, a tooltip pops up, and it goes away after a couple seconds, so you just move your mouse again and it'll come back, and this tells you what you can do and the keyboard shortcut. So with this one you can select symbols and its keyboard shortcut is S. So I'm going to go over here. It's already selected, so I don't need to hit S. So I just click on the ones that I want to move, and this is just how I do it. You can move them all one at a time. I guess technically I am going to be placing them one at a time, but here we go. Now we need to move them. They're selected, so now we need to move them. So we're going to use the translate tool, and it's called the translate tool, but its keyboard shortcut is G for grab. That's how I remember it, is G for grab. So I'll come over here and hit G, and just click your left mouse button and start moving your mouse around, and everything that is selected will move, keeping the same relationship to the mouse cursor as it had when you clicked. So place it where you want it and click again to set it there when it is where you like it. And now I'm going to move the rest of them, but I don't want to move this one anymore because I like where it is. So I enter select mode again by pushing S, and then I right click to deselect it. Now I'm going to move the next one over, so I hit G for grab, click the left mouse button, and then move my mouse around, and they will follow. And place it right where I want it, or, you know, relatively close to where I want it. And that looks pretty good. Maybe a little tiny bit closer. Does that move? I can't tell. Click to set it there. That's pretty good. I don't want to move that one anymore, so let's S and right click to deselect it. And G, click, move the mouse. That's pretty good. Click to set it. S for select mode. Right click. And G for grab. Click. Set it by clicking again. S. Deselect by right clicking. G for grab. Left click. Move the mouse. And click again when you like where it is. I think that's pretty good. And then A, you probably saw before over here on the select mode, that A will select all or none. So if anything that is selected, if you hit A, it will deselect them. And A will also select everything on the screen. All, none, all, none. I'm just hitting A, 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 A. So there we go. We have our foundation chain of 6 chains. And that looks pretty good to me, that I can tell that that is 6 chains. And so you probably can too. So let's start making our first row now. Go back to the symbols menu, and let's make this one a whole straight row of single crochet. I like to use the upright one. Not really any, I guess for not really any reason. There are probably advantages to both. I just haven't gotten so far into my chart making experience that I have used both of them yet. I really haven't used very many of the symbols just yet, but in time. So here we can see that the cursor is like sort of blocking our view, so just place it pretty close to where you want it, and then enter select mode by pressing S, and click on it to get it, and you can see how I had to click it twice. Sometimes, even though the mouse is clearly over the symbol, there's like a certain area for each symbol, and the mouse has to be just so in that area. So if you confirm that you're sometimes I've been trying to select something and like I'm not in select mode, so make sure you're in select mode, and then if you're in select mode and it's not selecting, just try moving your mouse just a little bit to get the hot spot. So G for grab, click and move it, and usually I just try to eyeball it to get it as centered as possible so that it's just, you know, if it is a little bit to the right or to the left, it's at least, you know, mostly over the stitch that it's supposed to be going into. So that's what I was talking about accepting your imperfections, that at least it's, you know, you can tell, you can read the chart, it's legible. So now we enter like the beginning, it's like this is the end of the beginning and the beginning of like the best part of Shea, which is the duplicate tool, which that's just my opinion, and it's only my opinion so far. That might change, you know, tomorrow or next week, but like I said, we're going to make a whole row of single crochet, but instead of placing each one individually, the duplicate tool, well, just watch. If you hold Ctrl and hit D, it will copy anything that was selected, and just move the mouse. I didn't click or anything, just move the mouse after you've duplicated, click to place it, and then that's where it will stay till you do something else to it. So let's go to select mode again, and by hitting S and click the other one, and now instead of duplicating one, we're going to duplicate two. So Control D, and it duplicated both of those, and click to place them. That's pretty good. And let's finish out the row. Control D, move the mouse, and a little more to the right. There we go. Click to place it there. And so now you can see we've placed 6 stitches a lot quicker than it would have been to, you know, using the duplicate tool, a lot quicker than it would have been to place them one by one. Okay, so select none by hitting A, and I think I want to make it 12 stitches instead of 6. So let's select all of them by hitting A, Control D, and then watch. Shoo-shoo! I just doubled the width of my row. Click to place it, and then A to deselect. That looks pretty good. So there's our first row. So now let's place a turning chain right there so that we can know how to crochet this thing. And just put it, you know, close to where you need it to be, because I'm going to mess with it anyway, so it doesn't have to be right away perfect. So the next tool I'm going to show you is the rotate tool. Its keyboard shortcut is R, but first you need to have something. You can't rotate anything if it's not selected. So S, and this is the one we want to rotate, so click on it. And you can push those buttons over there, but like I said, the keyboard shortcuts just make it more efficient. You can just get a lot more done in the same amount of time. So R, make sure we're in rotate mode, and just like translate mode, you click and then you move the mouse and it'll rotate up or down. You can move it left, or you can move it anywhere really. I just usually move it up and down to rotate it. It's just me. So I think sometimes people have their chart with it straight and then it's like up close to the row, but for today I just kind of like the way this looks at an angle, so I'm gonna click to set it there, and then G for grab, and I'm gonna bring it a little bit closer here. It's a little bit in outer space, so let's put it, there we go. That's more, I'm gonna put, yeah, I like that. It's more contiguous with the foundation chain. So there we go, hit A, and we have our first row. So let's move on to our second row. Why don't we make this alternating, let's make a square of alternating rows of single crochet and double crochet. So the next row is going to be all double crochet, but I'm going to show you I don't know if it's better, but it's probably faster way to make the next row. So let's duplicate this row here. So select it, and here's another way of selecting. If you're in select mode, you click and drag, which is to say you click the left mouse button and hold it down and move the mouse. That's called click and drag. And then you can see a box appear, and everything that's inside of the box will get selected. So that's called the selection box, and you can use it when you're in select mode. And the same thing goes for deselecting. If you hold the right mouse button down and move the mouse, it'll deselect everything in the box, but I want those, so let's select them again. Control D, copy the whole row. Now look at that. Click to set it, and now here is something très cool. We wanted to make it double crochets, right? So now we have all the things that we want to be changed selected. Edit, update selection. Watch this. When I click it, double crochets. So let's grab it and click to move it up just to make sure we can tell that it's its own row. Click to set it there. So what happened was we had a selection made. All these symbols were selected, and then we went to edit and update selection. And whenever you choose this, it will change whatever is selected to whatever symbol you have chosen over here. So that's another pretty good feature, I think, of the program. So A to select none, and now we have 2 rows, almost. We need to make this, I think we need to make this one a turning chain 3, because that's usually how you do it. So S to select that one, and you can go edit and delete, or you can just hit delete on your keyboard. So now let's pick our chain up, and you'll notice that you can't place anything, and that's because we're in select mode. So over here, translate mode, it says move selected symbols or add symbols. If you want to add symbols, you have to be in translate mode. So G for translate mode, G for grab. And I'm just going to place these one by one, just right next to each other. There's just 3 of them, so I can just do it right like that. And then we need to rotate them so that they're vertical, so they'll go here. So S, drag a box around them, and R, click, move the mouse, and they all will rotate. Rotate will work, it'll do its job on everything that is selected. So what it does is calculates the center point of all that is selected, and it'll rotate around that center point. So now I'm going to Control D, and because we just had the rotate, we're still in rotation mode because that's the last tool we used. It's rotating instead of translating. And that would be good for in the round, but that's not what we're doing right now. So I'm just going to hit G, and it's still duplicated, so it's fine. We just move it to where we want it and then click to set it there. And there we have our turning chain, but I see a problem because I don't like how this is much higher than the rest of the row. There's a few ways to fix this. You could either select this whole row and move it up, but I like how it's kind of hugging the row below it. So what I'm going to do is S to make sure I'm in selection mode and deselect this one because I like how far away that's placed. But then I'm going to move these ones down, so I'm going to grab it, click, and move that one down, and then S to deselect that one, and then G and click to move this one down, not over, but down, click to set it there, and then A to deselect all. And now you can see that, it is shorter, but it's kind of just squashed looking, and it's, within the context of a crochet chart, you could probably tell that that's supposed to be 3 chains. especially since it's at the beginning of a row of double crochet, but it really doesn't look very clean, it just is a little squashed. So there is yet another way to fix that, and that is with the symbols editor. If you go to edit, there's a symbol editor where you can create your own symbols. And I've done a couple of these. I made a double crochet whose top stick was skinnier. I don't use that much anymore because I've learned to like put some space in between my symbols, but still it was useful at the time. But here you have all these, what is this, 6 different shapes that you can play with, and if you just click the gray boxes you can move them around. I don't want to go too much into this off onto a sidetrack, but you can add more than one symbol at a time, or more than one shape at a time, and these mess with, well, you can't really tell because there's so many shapes, and so let's delete some. Edit and delete will delete whichever symbol is highlighted in this list over here. So we'll just delete all of them except for one, and you can see that, well, I guess I don't really understand what these are yet, sorry about that. Ha! Maybe it just works on the arc. Anyway, back up. What I did to solve this chain problem that I was talking about before I sidetracked myself, sorry, I came in here and used the ellipse and I changed it to make just a smaller chain. And then I saved it. I already saved it. I already have one, so I'm gonna just make this all crazy. So let's title this Sample. And you can add a description, and it's all the shapes. And this has like 60 or 100 or something characters, so you can just define what stitch the symbol you just created represents, so that if you decide to share this file, you can, what you'll do is save this to your hard drive and then import it into Chet, and you can send the file of the symbol to your friend, and if your friend has Chet and wants to use the symbol too, then they can use it, and that would be a good time. That's where the description could be really useful, so that everybody can know what exactly that symbol represents. But I just wanted to show you that that was there. I can make another tutorial on the symbol editor itself another day. So once you have saved a symbol to your hard drive, you can go to File, Import Symbols, and find, here it is, Small Chain, and it'll appear in your Symbols menu. There it is, Small Chain. And as you can see, it's very clearly a chain stitch that's smaller. Ctrl Z, that's not where I want it. So I'm going to make another one of these, turning chain 3s. Another one of these, turning chain 3s. So now I'm gonna S to select these ones and get rid of them first. Just delete them. Sorry guys. And then I'll select these ones and R to rotate them, and click, move my mouse, click to set it, and Ctrl D to duplicate. Oops, we're still in rotate mode, so G, and move it on. Now it still is a little bit, S and right click, still is a little bit tall, so I'm gonna G click and move it down just a tiny bit. Usually I can place them better at first, but that time I think I was doing it a little too fast. G for grab, click, move it down just a tiny bit, just a whisper. Click. Okay. Deselect. So now you can see that is still a little bit taller, but much cleaner than squashing these ones together, like I did before. So there is that, and we're done with our first 2 rows. So remember how I said that the duplicate tool was like my favorite feature so far? Just hold on to your hats, folks. First of all, I'm gonna add more rows, is what I'm getting at. And first we need to move this all down because we're running out of room. We're gonna run out of room up here. That's the top of the canvas. We can't put any more after that. If you scroll down, there's plenty of space down here, but not enough at the top. So let's A to select everything, G to grab it, click, move it down, and now is a good time to tell you about this little quirk, is that if your mouse cursor leaves the canvas, the tool will stop, well, it won't stop functioning, it just sort of like pauses its function. And let's say if I come back onto the canvas way over here, it looks like it disappeared, but really it just snapped to the same relationship as it had before with the mouse cursor. So just if you find you're coming to the edge of the canvas, just click and then click again. Move your mouse to a better spot, click again, and continue moving it. So you have to be on the canvas for the tools really to function. And the same goes for rotate. If you're like rotating something, and you start rotating it and you come to the edge, just click to set it there, and then whoops, and then set it. Okay, so now we can place some more rows. So deselect everything, S to enter select mode. Let's drag a box around all of them, except the foundation chain. Obviously, we don't need that again, unless that's what your pattern calls for. Ctrl D. Move your mouse and click to place it. And now let's enter select mode again and drag another box around these so that we only have to do it one more time. Ctrl D and move it up. And there's our 8-row square. We're done. I didn't tell you before, but we're gonna make an 8-row square. So now we're done. Now, let's see if there's anything to fix. Because like usually, that actually looks pretty good. I've been practicing this tutorial a whole bunch, so I'm like a little too good at it now. So I have to like find mistakes to show you to fix. So what I was talking about earlier about just kind of getting a first draft out and like, going with your flow and like, just letting go of your worries about perfection. I'm seeing right here, this column, this gap is a little bit wider than, say, this gap is between this column of stitches. And actually, I can hardly tell. But let's just say, I'll just select some stuff and move it around so you can see how, like the chart's done, but I want to make this one minor change, but it applies to the, almost the whole chart. So I just highlight all of those because I'm going to move them closer to this, close that gap a little bit. And I don't have to really, but G for grab and click and move it. And let's say I change my mind. I can right click to cancel. Did you see how that moved The same goes for rotate mode. So let's say, here's a better example, like I was gonna go to move them, so I want to hit G for grab, but I was working so fast and I was like in my flow, you know, working real fast, and I accidentally hit R and went and started move. Oh my gosh, I didn't mean to do that. So, you know, don't panic, just right click to cancel. That's your motto, right click to cancel. Control Z, Control Y, duplicate tool, right click to cancel. And we're still in rotate mode, so if I go to do it again, it's still going to keep rotating, but just right click will set it right back to where it was before you made your mistake, and hit G to grab, click, and move it over, and then set it. I don't think it really needed to be moved over, but I'll just leave it there anyway. So A to select none. And this would be good for, like, a lot of times when I'm doing my charts, like, they'll end up veering off to the right, or, you know, kind of just not being perfectly square. So that's when I would, like, you know, if it's kind of veered off, I would just kind of select all the things that are on that path of veering, and I would just, you know, fix them. And you know, if it's veering over, the top ones are farther away than the bottom ones are. So once, you know, I fix the bottom ones and then deselect those and fix the top ones, and kind of like how I did with the beginning chain, how I had all of them selected and I just kept kind of placing them, working with them one at a time. So anyway, let's save our project. We should have probably been doing that throughout, but I didn't want to, like, interrupt the demonstration to save, so I'll take you through saving now. Warning, there is no Control S to save. A lot of programs have Control S and it will save. That is not the case with this program, and there's a good reason for it. And that is because it's, I forget what exactly it is, but it's like JavaScript or the API or some things that I don't understand, but there's some thing that takes a while to recognize that you've hit the control key. And so a lot of people just like to go Control S when they're in the zone, you know, and save it real quick. And that's fine and good, but if your program doesn't recognize the control until, you know, it takes a second to recognize it, it's too fast for the program. So he didn't include it. He considered it, but it wasn't, you know, working, so he didn't include that function. So you have to go File, Save, and if you haven't already saved it, you would go Save As, but you can see I just did Save and it took me to the same window as Save As would, so it really doesn't matter. I'm going to save this to a USB drive because this isn't my computer and this is just a tutorial. So I'll save it on the USB drive. So I'm going to call it tutorial chart. And as you can see, I've already got one here. I've been practicing the tutorial. This is like my 6th run of it. So I already have one, but if you don't put the file extension on, it won't alert you that you already have one of the same name. See how it didn't say pop up a window and tell me, like, warn me that, yo dude, you already have one that's called this, so you need to change the name or else I'm gonna write over it. Is that okay? And then you say okay, or you change the name. But if I go Save As and I put in tutorial chart and I include the file extension, tutorialchart.cet already exists. Do you want to replace it? Yes, I do. Thank you for asking. So there's that. So just know that, I guess. So now I'll show you another tool. Zoom. You can zoom all the way out and see your whole canvas in one go, one shot. So now you can sort of probably see way after the fact what I was talking about with the canvas and the size of the canvas. So remember ours was 8 by 10, so this is just a this isn't literally 8 inches by 10 inches, but it's a graphical representation of 8 by 10. So this is this white space is the size of our image. And the size of our image, if you print it out on a piece of paper, is going to take up 8 by 10 inches. And in this case, since our chart is so small, I don't want it to take up that much space, so what I'm going to show you how to do is to scale the project. So you go to File, Scale Project, and that will bring up a window. Recognize this? It's the same as the new project window, except it says Scale Project instead. But before I do that, I'm going to select everything, and actually I'm going to deselect this stuff, S, deselect, by right-clicking, and then I'm just going to delete those because I don't need those anymore. Now I'm going to select everything and move it to the upper left-hand corner. Just grab it and move it, and I was about to run off the canvas, so I clicked to set it. I moved my mouse down here, and I'm going to click again and keep moving it. And click to set it there. Now the reason I did that is because now I'm kind of making this up, but I think it's true that like graphical, like imaging software always sort of like is anchored at the top left corner. So when you go to change the size of the image, it will subtract, like say we're gonna make it smaller, so it's gonna subtract from the bottom up and from the right in. Like if we're changing the width, it's gonna take off from the right, and this point will always stay the same, so it doesn't sort of it doesn't like shrink from the corners to the center. It shrinks from like one side to the other. I hope that made sense to somebody out there. So now I'm going to scale the project. And it's about, I'd say, I think it's like 1/3 probably of the way across. So that's like, what is that, like, that's probably good enough, 275, and it's relatively square. I think it's a little taller, so 300. And as you can see, that's a 2.8 inch by 3 1/8. I think that's 1/8 inches. So okay. And now you can see our image is much smaller in, you know, the area of our. It's a smaller image in size. So let's select everything and grab it and center it a little better. So now when I put this into my Word document, which I will then put into a PDF, now the picture is only going to take up, you know, a few inches, and that's good for, like, if you have a big chart and you need to take up the whole page, take up the whole page. But if you have a small chart and you don't want to take up the whole page, then scale your project. So now when I import my image into like Word, whatever word processor I'm using, the image is only going to be this big. So I can stick it on the page and still have like maybe the written pattern, the written instructions are at the top of the page, and then this image is at the bottom of the page, and you can't, it's just going to be the chart at the bottom because the background of the chart is white. And if you can imagine, if I took this whole image and imported it and smacked it into Word, the page is white, so you can't tell where the image ends and the page begins because it's all white. So it's, you know, seamless. You can just, it looks like you just placed a chart there. It's really good, in my opinion. So there you go. So, but before we can use this image in any other program, we need to make it readable for other programs, because right now if you look here at the top in this, I think it's called the title bar. You can see the extension is .cet, and that CET files are only readable by Shay. Shay's the only program, whoa, I didn't mean to do that. Shay's the only program that can read CET files. So we need to convert it, and that's what export does. So export, and choose a place to export it to, and I'm going to choose, I like to keep all my pictures of my charts in the same spot. You can see my other charts here. They become a ping file. It converts it to a ping file, and as you might know, you might be familiar with ping files, a lot more programs can read them. So let's just write over the old one, save it. Do you want to replace it? Yeah, that's fine, even though it's the exact same thing. Technically it's not though, and I'll show you why. So let's look at it in, whoops, let's browse to that in our, oh no, there it is. Put it in here. So I'll just open this with preview. And now you can see I'm just in Windows Photo Viewer. It's just an image viewing program. You can see this is how big the picture is. And this, for reference, is that triangle-shaped cowl I was telling you about that was really wide. So obviously you can see that this image is much wider than this one is, but it will still fit on the same piece of paper. I forget how wide in inches this ended up being, but there it is. There's our 8-row chart. So let's say, just for the sake of the tutorial, that I changed my mind and I want to make it 10 rows. I really want my square to be 10 rows. So let's go back to Shay and let's move it down a little bit. Let's select everything, A, G to grab it, click to move it down, A to select none, S, click and drag a box. Whoops, I didn't mean to get that one, so right click it and Ctrl D and move those up. And click when you like where they are. And A to select none. And now I've changed the image, I've changed it, so now I need to export it again. And since we already exported it, it's already got a place to save it to. It won't ask you again to title it. So save and save as work similarly to export and export as. They do a different job, but they do it in the same way. So hopefully that made sense too. So now if we go back to our pings and open it again, it's been updated to 4, 6, 8, 10. So that's now our 10-row chart. And let me confer with my list here to make sure I told you everything that I wanted to tell you. Right click to cancel, I told you that, right? There's no Control S. We exported it, and then we changed it after we exported it. I told you about zooming and scaling the project. Alright, I guess that's everything. I'll just give you a short recap. Go back to Shay. Maximizing the window just helps you see the whole big picture. You need to go to File, New to start a new project, or if you already started one and you're going to work on it again, you open. The symbols are over here on the right. The tools are right below it, and each has a keyboard shortcut. These are more tools that I will get into that are more useful for working in the round, and I'll get to those in the next tutorial or a later tutorial. I don't know if it will be next or not, but the zoom, look how tiny that got. And then curves, which I'll do a different tutorial for later. And there's also the symbol editor, which you can make your own symbols with. Preferences has some pretty cool stuff. I'll do that later. Yeah, I'll just do that later. That'll probably go with the symbols editor tutorial. Update selection. That'll change anything that is any symbols that are selected. When you click this, it will change it to whatever is highlighted in your symbols menu. And that's a good way to change a whole bunch of symbols real fast. And yeah, Control Z, Control Y, Control D, right click to cancel, keyboard shortcuts. So I hope you have enjoyed learning about Shay, and good luck with your chart making. Until next time, something, something, something.